Thanks, Amy. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our travel session for the Baltic states, the Baltic countries. And my name is Ilyas, for those of you who meet me for the first time here online. And I'm in New Jersey, just in behind me, you see Tallinn, and that is, one of the capitals that we're going to visit on this trip. But I'm in Jersey City at the moment, and with my company, we organize the trips for World Affairs Council of Houston for quite some time now. Now, as Amy also mentioned, the brochure for this trip is on World Affairs Council website. When you go to the travel section, just you can find out this trip, and from there you can download the brochure and the trip details. You can just read to remind yourself what we're going to cover today. So in a short while, I will share my screen with you, and I will go over a number of the highlights of our trip of these three capitals. And I will not necessarily cover everything that we're going to see on this trip, but mostly, the highlights and a general outline of history, outline of what's going on in these three countries and three capitals. So here we are. I will share my screen with you. And here it comes. And now I believe you see my screen with our cover page of Baltic capitals, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, from June 9th to June 17th, a 9-day and 7-night trip. It's, just relatively short and compact, but it covers all the important sites and mainly the three capitals. Now, this is the general map of the region, not just the three Baltic countries, but of the whole region. What we see here, the three countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they are, if you see my cursor here, the arrow moving, they're here, and they are surrounded by Russia, of course, to the east, and Belarus to the south, and Poland to the southwest, and a small part of Russia here again, a small enclave, Russian enclave of Kaliningrad here. So Lithuania is also, just even though it doesn't have Russia, the mainland, as its first-hand neighbor on the east. On the west, it has Kaliningrad, this enclave, an extension of Russia as its neighbor. And then there's the Baltic Sea to the northwest, north and west. And to the north, we have Finland and Sweden and Denmark. So this is the general setting of these three countries. And these countries are, just small. They are, well, each one, Lithuania, that is the most populous one among the three, with the population of 2.8 million people. Its area is, just more or less the size of West Virginia. And same for Latvia, size of West Virginia with a population of about 1.9 million people. And Estonia, even smaller, it's twice the size of New Hampshire, and with a 1.3 million population. Now, on this trip, we brought them together for what? For, of course, geographic proximity. That's the one thing, and the common parts of history that they share. And most of us have the impression that because of their location and because of the commonality of especially their recent history, we think of them as just similar, ethnically similar, linguistically similar, culturally similar, which couldn't be more wrong. They are different from different roots, culturally, linguistically, they are different. And even today, they have, just different populations, which I have to mention. Now, let me go to just the second map, which is a close-up of these three countries. Now, Lithuania, for example, the largest one by population, 2.8 million. It is now first of all, none of these three countries are Slavic, for example. Just, so in that sense, ethnically, they are not related to, Russians or Belarus or Ukrainians or anything. So originally in this part of the world, there were Baltic people. The name Baltic Sea comes from that. And those Baltic people, the original settlers from prehistoric times. And so these Lithuanians and Latvians come from the Baltic people, and their languages are from the Baltic roots, the original, of course, developed in the thousands of years, but they still have those Baltic roots. Whereas Estonia, the people of Estonia, they are more Finnic. They are culturally more or closer to the Finnish people up north. So their language and their cultural background are very similar to the people of Finland of today. As for today's religion, for example, just Lithuania, most of the population, about 3/4, 7/4, 75% of the population are Catholic. So in that sense, they are closer to the Polish people, to Poland. And historically, we will see that they were at one point actually together with Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Kingdom of Poland. They formed a commonwealth at the end of 14th century. So in that sense, they are affiliated, or they are have an affinity with the Polish people. Latvians, they are, 35% of Latvians are Lutheran, only 25% Catholic, and 75% Orthodox. Again, you see, we don't see any Orthodox population here other than the Russian population who moved to these countries once, especially after the Soviet Union, occupation of the Soviet Union. And as for Estonia, an astonishing 65% of the population claim to have no religion at all. And then the second comes 20% Orthodox. So you see, just the small countries neighboring each other in a small piece of land, but the variety, cultural, ethnic, historic variety is there. And so that is why when we visit these three countries, we will emphasize those differences as well as the similarities of the countries. So our trip will start in the south. We will fly into Vilnius. The best connection will be on Lufthansa. So the suggested flights, if you just download the brochure and check that, the suggested flights will be on Lufthansa. We will arrive in Vilnius. And now here, just a view from Vilnius. It is the capital city of Lithuania, with a population of about 600,000 people, which is about 1/6, 1/5 of the population, more or less. And it is on, two banks of the Vilnia River, and its old town. We see another view from the old town, is in the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And it has one of the most unique examples of Baroque architecture in or among the three Baltic countries. What we see here is the main cathedral, the Vilnius Cathedral, originally from 14th century, but this reincarnation is from 18th century, and it is, of course, a Catholic church, as I mentioned, majority of the population being Catholic. So we will visit the highlights, the historic highlights of the city, including the old town, the cathedral. Here is a view from inside, and there's one more actually Baroque church that we're going to visit. And on the top of the hill overlooking the city is Gediminas Tower from 1409. The Grand Duke of Lithuania, Gediminas, was the original builder of the tower just after the beginning of 15th century, it was renovated a bunch of times. But this is the symbol of the country, the symbol of the city, and we see here the flag of Lithuania, that's just here on top of the pole. So, as I mentioned, Lithuania formed its unity at the beginning of, or in the middle of 13th century as a kingdom of Lithuania. And it covered at the beginning of the 14th century a huge area, just most of the eastern Russia and today's remaining two other Baltic countries and eastern part of Poland and northern part of Belarus. It was all dominated by this Grand Duchy of Lithuania. And by 1386, they formed a commonwealth, as I mentioned, with Poland, the Kingdom of Poland, with a marriage, actually. This commonwealth was dismantled in 1795, where Russian Empire just attacked, came in and annexed the country until 1918. Now, what we see here is one of the oldest universities in Baltic states, the old University of Vilnius. It was built in 1579 as a Jesuit academy. And let's see here. Yes, and then of course it just had a number of reincarnations, and it is still one of the main educational establishments in or among the three Baltic countries. The old town is quite interesting with its social life, with its lively, vibrant culture. Just there are all these, little shops and restaurants and coffee houses. So you'll have some free time to walk around in the city and to explore the town on our own partly. So outside the town or around Vilnius, this is just another scene from the nightlife of Vilnius. But as we go out of Vilnius, just within a short distance, we will see this Trakai Castle built on a small island on Lake Galve. A 14th century, end of 14th, beginning of 15th, it was finished. The construction was finished in 1409, again during the time of this Grand Duchy of Lithuania. So it was one of the main fortresses, main castles. Trakai Castle. Here, another view. Now, in this region, in all these three countries, we will see really very good examples of the end of 14th, beginning of 15th century Baltic castles. They are from the time of this Grand Duchy on the one hand, but also what I should mention as the from the time of Teutonic Knights. Now, these Teutonic Knights, we will mention them, just very frequently. If you join the trip, you'll learn about the history of these Teutonic Knights. They were formed in what is today Kaliningrad, as I mentioned on the map. They were one of the warrior orders of the church. Some part of them, they joined the Crusades. Some part of Teutonic Knights too, actually, joined the Crusades, and they went all the way to, just today's Asia Minor, Turkey, through that to today's Holy Lands, starting from 11th century, and they were part of the original Crusaders. And some of them joined the Crusades of the North, which is not that well known. Here, what we see is the inside of this castle, partly renovated, partly as it is in dilapidated condition. Now, we will talk about this Northern Crusade in a while. About this castle, it lost its significance after 19th century and just left to its own. And it was rebuilt in 1950s and 60s. to become one of the important historic sites of Lithuania, just very close to Vilnius. So our time in Vilnius, it will cover the city itself, the old town, its history, and the Trakai Castle outside Vilnius. Then on our next day, we will ride from Vilnius to Riga, but not directly, just we will visit a number of places along the way on that day and on the next day, a number of interesting locations outside or in Latvia, but outside Riga. The first of which will be Rundale Palace. Now, this is a very nice Baroque style palace. You see the gardens surrounding the palace, very European. Just of course with the well, this is from 18th century, and it was influenced by the palace architecture and the garden architecture of the bigger cities of Europe, of Italy, of France. So we see that influence here. So this is a Baroque palace from 1735. The construction started. It was a palace for the Dukes of Courland. The Dukes of Courland, they established themselves in the 16th century. They were dominated by the Duchy of Lithuania, so they had their allegiance to them. But just in the middle of 16th century, for a brief period of time, they had their own lands here, relative independence. And at that time, from 1735 to 1768, construction finished. They built this palace as a summer residence. Now, in 1795, after the Commonwealth of Lithuania, the Duchy of Lithuania and Poland ended, these lands were under the domination of the Russian Empire, during which time Catherine the Great, she captured this area, and she presented this palace to a brother of one of her lovers. And it was after that used, well, actually I have to go back again here, just to talk about that. In 1812, there was the French invasion. It was used as a hospital for Napoleon's army, and it was damaged during the First World War. And it was only in 1971 that it was reconstructed and renovated and restored during the time of the Latvian Soviet Socialist Republic. So it has this kind of historical significance and long and interesting history. So we are going to visit that on our way to the capital of Latvia, Riga. Another place we are going to visit, which is outside the capital Riga, is Turaida Castle from 1214 originally. Another typical castle, located in the middle of a forest by a river on a high point overlooking the area, overlooking the surrounding area. So it was constructed in 1214 by Albert, the Archbishop of Riga. And now this Albert, the Archbishop, he was the head of the Livonian Brothers of the Sword. This is another order, religious order, but not all religious orders were just warrior religious orders. These are the warrior religious orders, so they live by their sword, so the name Livonian Brothers of the Sword. So they, in a short period of time, they joined these Teutonic Knights, the Order of the Teutonic Knights, located in today's Kaliningrad. At that time, it was Königsberg, and they joined this northerly Baltic crusades. Now we have to remember that Christianity came to this part of the world quite late, and the people of these Baltic countries, they converted to Christianity quite late, starting from the end of 13th, beginning of 14th century. And especially Estonians, for example, I have to mention that they were one of the last pagan populations in Europe in 13th century, towards the end of 13th century. So these crusading fighting warrior orders, they were here to convert the local pagan population to Christianity, and hence all these castles were built to just continue with the Baltic crusades. So what we see here, this Drida Castle, it has also, in addition to this, crusading history, it has a continuing history in the background to a local love story. Just there was a battle in 1601, and the legend goes, now this is a close-up of the castle, the legend goes, after the battle, the castle clerk finds a baby girl just alive, just in the on the ground, in the slain, among the slain people, and he takes the girl, adopts her, and raises her and gives her the name Maya. She grows up to be a beautiful young maiden, and she was known to be the Rose of Trida, which gives the name to the legend of Rose of Trida. And she falls in love with a gardener named Victor, the gardener of another castle just across the river, Sigulda Castle, 1620, the legend goes. And what happens is, again, the legend goes, here close by, which we're going to visit, there is this cave, the cave, Gudmanis Cave. And this is their meeting point, their secret meeting point, the meeting point of this Rose of Trida, Maya, and Victor, the gardener. So they were just, meeting here secretly. And at some point they decided to get married, and just the girl Maya, she received a letter from her lover to meet here. She went there a little bit early. Instead of her lover, there was a Polish soldier waiting here who was secretly in love with her, and he was just he started to force her to marry him rather than Victor. But she was, of course, totally against this, in love with Victor, and to protect her honor, she devised a plan, which I'm not going to tell, not to spoil the story. The rest of the story you will learn over there. But in the end, what happens is, unfortunately, she dies, and she is buried in within the grounds of the castle, and her, just legendary burial ground is still over there, and people visit and bring flowers. The just newly married people come there and bring flowers. Now, what about this cave? This cave, their meeting point. This is the part of the legend. Starting from the 17th century, or the Battle of 1601, people started to visit this cave. Now, first of all, interestingly, this cave happens to be the widest and largest cave in the Baltics. It is about 55 feet deep, 36 feet wide, and 30 feet high. It's sandstone rock. And the important part here, just we see, just relative size of it. But here, what we see, all these visiting people from, starting from the beginning of 17th century, they had their marks here. The important people, the nobles, they came here. And another interesting part was the local craftsmen. They were waiting here for the noblemen of the time to come and visit this location, this scene of this love story. And these noblemen will pay for the craftsmen here to carve their signs, their names, their symbols on the rock surface of the cave. So these are all from 17th, 18th centuries. The marks that were carved by these craftsmen, the marks representing all these noble people and the noble visitors who visited this cave to honor these lovers. So the place is now under protection, as you might imagine, and the people, the visitors, when we go there, if we go there, we won't be allowed to carve our names, of course, on this piece of rock. But that is the significance of the cave, Gutman's cave, which we are going to visit just outside Riga, the capital of Latvia. Another place is another castle, just a typical castle you see with the architecture and with the mound around it, with the on a mound actually. It was built in 1206 again by these Livonian brothers, and then the Teutonic Knights took over. And here another side from this castle. Its story is Ivan the Terrible besieged this castle in 1577, and the people defending the castle, they didn't give up, and in the end, about 300 people who were in the castle, they committed mass suicide by blowing themselves up with gunpowder in the castle. So not to better than being caught alive by Ivan the Terrible all the time. So that is, just a part of the history of this Sessus castle. Now, another interesting location, important location, I should say, a more somber one that we're going to visit is the Salaspils Memorial. This is also very close to Riga, the capital of Latvia. This is from more recent history, 1941, as I'm sure you can read here. Now, in 1941, Nazis established the largest civilian concentration camp here. Now, I have to mention before just talking about this Salaspils, a common part of the history of these, three separate countries. One common part of recent history is after the First World War, 1918, when it ended with the defeat of the Germans, the Kingdom of Germany at the time, they all declared their independence. So Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, they all declared their independence end of 1918, beginning of 1919, and they had a brief period of independence from 1918 till the beginning of the Second World War. And the Second World War, they fought against the Germans, but they were occupied by Nazis first, 1941, and then by the Russians in 1944, 43, 44, just back and forth, of course. The war between Soviet Union and the Nazi Germany going on in this area. And after the end of the Second World War, this area was totally occupied by the Soviet Union. It was then that these three countries reluctantly, against their the wishes of their populations, became a part of the Soviet Union. Just three Soviet republics, respectively, Latvian and Estonian and Lithuanian Soviet republics. So this is a common part of the history of these three countries. And at the end of which, in 1991, they all, of course, declared their independence from Soviet Union. But going back to this location, Salaspils, as I mentioned, in 1941, Nazis established the largest civilian concentration camp in the Baltic states. The number of deaths here, well, it was about 2,000 to 3,000 at the time. The historians of the time, Soviet historians, claimed to have, about 10,000 or more than 10,000 people dying here, but contemporary, our today's modern historians, they come up with a number of about 2 to 3 thousand people. So this memorial, this major monument complex, was constructed, established in 1967 in remembrance of the Soviet victims of Nazism at the time in 1941. So we will visit this memorial and learn about the history of this place and the history of this period. Then we will be in Riga, the capital of Latvia. This is the biggest, the largest capital and the largest city of, or in the 3 Baltic countries, with a population of about 670,000 people. Now, remembering that Latvia's population is about 1.9 million people, that means about more than 30% of the population of Latvia actually lives in the capital. Again, it is established, city is established on the 2 banks of Daugava River. It was again established in 1201 by the same bishop that had the previous castle constructed, the Bishop Albert. And now another thing I need to mention a little bit later, maybe just it'll be easier to mention this on the map. Hanseatic League. It was an important historic confederation of merchants starting from 12th century in this part of the world. Just I will talk about that briefly in a short while. Now here in Riga, Riga Castle, originally from 1330, but of course this building here is from a much later period. And so we'll visit the old part of the city, the Dome Cathedral. The dome in itself means cathedral in German actually. A Lutheran church having majority of the population in Latvia. Lutheran. That is what we would expect. And the old town, another cute town, cute part of the city, the Swedish Gate. Well, back and forth, there were skirmishes and battles between the kingdom of Sweden and the Latvians and Lithuanians, all these populations here. So this is the gate that leads to north, actually up to Sweden, to the Scandinavian countries. And in the middle of the old city, the big square, surrounding the big square, nice Baroque structures. Now these two here, these are guild houses, House of the Blackheads, originally from 14th century, and this was the Brotherhood of Blackheads Guild. Now this guild was constructed. Now this Brotherhood of Blackheads, they were the guild for the unmarried merchants and ship owners and foreigners who were in Riga. So there comes this Hanseatic League from northern Germany, all the coastal part of Poland and Denmark and what is today Kaliningrad, and these 3 countries, they formed the Hanseatic League from 12th century onward. This was a confederation of about 200 coastal cities and a confederation of merchants for free trade, free and safe trade, coming from, following the coastline from Germany all the way up to the Baltic countries and Baltic states. Now, in a sense, spiritually, we can say this was the spiritual predecessor of European Union. So that is how it started, in a sense, we can say. So historically, in that sense, that is, very important for European countries. And from end of 1950s and the beginning of the 60s, when the project of European Union actually started immediately after the Second World War, but in practice, end of 50s, beginning of 60s, when European Union started to take shape. The reference was to the Hanseatic League of the 12th, 13th, 14th centuries. So this is one of the centers of this, Hanseatic League of the time, an important merchant center, which we're going to talk about. Now, when we visit Latvia, Riga, the city, we are not only going to visit the old town, but we'll visit another part of the town, the relatively modern town, Alberta Streets. Now, it is architecturally very important. It has, the Art Nouveau architectural style all over the street. Most of the buildings were built by the Latvian Jewish architect Mikhail Eisenstein. All these houses, and they housed the important names in Latvian and European history. So we will see mostly from outside, of course, these architectural masterpieces of the time, good examples of the Art Nouveau architectural style of the time, with various ornaments on the facades and mythical creatures and sculptures of mythical deities and creatures. So we will just learn about this part of Latvian history. And of course, we're going to speak of the Jewish history of this area, not only Latvia, but in all of the three Baltic countries. There was a considerable Jewish population, which contributed a lot to the economy and culture of these countries, and we will learn about that also. So this will cover our time in Riga, and the next day we will leave Riga, driving a little bit northwest into Estonia. But on the way, visiting this manor house, Liepupe manor house from 1751. This is another, architectural piece, architectural heritage of Latvia, from a Baroque piece, which is today a well-known guest house and hotel, and has a very nice restaurant, and we'll have a chance to have some drinks, some tea over there maybe. So we will drive, as I said, from Riga up north. Now we are in Estonia, and we will be on the coast of the Baltic Sea. We will stop in Pärnu for a period, short period of time, just for the beaches and to get to see Baltic Sea firsthand, to experience that, and then we'll drive up north to the capital of Estonia, to Tallinn. Now in Pärnu here, this is Baltic Sea here, and this is one of the most popular beaches along the Baltic Sea coast, and one of the most popular beaches of the three Baltic countries. Now, Baltic Sea is actually a part of the Atlantic Ocean, and Atlantic Ocean, with all the nooks and crannies, and it has various seas on the west, on the east, north, and south. And this Baltic Sea is the 15th largest sea that is a part of the Atlantic Ocean that forms the big ocean. It's about 1,000 miles long and 140 miles wide. And it's the largest brackish inland water body that is a part of the Atlantic Ocean. Its salinity is lower than the ocean because of all the rivers that pour their water, their fresh water, into the Baltic Sea. So its salinity is lower due to this inflow water. And its average depth is about 180 feet. The deepest location is about 1,500 feet, just in the middle, in between Finland and Estonia, I suppose. So we will stop for a short while here close to beach, and get a feel of what Baltic Sea feels like, it looks like, and in that sense get some information about the see to a little bit more detail. Then we will drive, again, we are in Estonia now, up north to the capital Tallinn. And the scenery, it is, we will drive in forests, and it is really a beautiful, beautiful scenery. The North Estonian forests, they are well known, and the forestry here is one of the main economic activities, I should say. About 50% of Estonia is covered by forests. So it is, of course, as I mentioned, it is twice the size of New Hampshire, but still, just 50% of the country is, forests of pine and spruce and birch. So we will, have very nice scenery, especially, we'll be there in June, just beautiful green, lush green part of the country. And from Pärnu, just covering all this, forest area, we will end up in the capital, Tallinn. So, capital of Tallinn, with a beautiful skyline, with a population of about 430,000 people. And again, just 1.3 million is the population of the whole country. So again, 1/3 of the population is in the capital. So we see here the upper part of the old town. It has a cute old town as usual, and a very colorful architecture. Now this is the entrance to the old town, the gates to the old town. Just we will. Our hotel is very close to the old town. We can just walk into the old town, and here, just first it is this level, and then it starts climbing to the top, to the main square. Here we will see one of the main square here, with the old city hall, and again guild buildings and buildings of the merchants and trade halls, and it is alive now today with all the restaurants and cafes. So we'll spend some time here and climb even higher to the highest point of the old town. This is Toompea Castle. The old castle, which has been renovated, as you can tell, a number of times, and which today houses the parliament of Estonia. So that is why you see it is in top good condition, and we see Estonian flag up on the tower. And we'll visit a number of churches, and this is Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, an Orthodox cathedral from 1894, and a number of other historic buildings in the old town we are going to visit. And one of the highlights, though, is the Kumu Art Museum. Kumu Art Museum, this was built in 2006, as you can tell from the architecture, quite modern. And Kumu is itself, in the name, is an abbreviation from Kunstmuseum, that is from, Museum of Art, it means. And in 2008, it won the European Museum of the Year award. So architecturally, it is very interesting. It's a very nice building in the first place. And its exhibits also are very interesting, mostly, of course, contemporary, modern Estonian art, and also partly European art. So we will also spend some time in the Kumu Museum here in the capital of Tallinn in Estonia. And that will be our final day final day of our trip. And from Estonia, from Tallinn, we will fly back home. So that will be our 9th day, the end of our trip, and covering all 3 countries. So now I will, let me just stop sharing my screen, and here, and turn on my camera here. So back here, yes, as you see just it is a very small area, 3 countries, and we, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we tend to lump them together as Baltic countries, but they share, well, in modern history, they share, of course, just they have just common parts in their history. But as we go back in history, their cultural origins are different, languages are different, and they have their unique aspects, each of them, that we're going to experience on this trip. So if you have any questions, as much as we can, we'll be glad to answer.
This is Ursula. I have been to Tallinn, and it's a beautiful city, lots of history.
Yes, I believe just, you were on the very first trip when we had that quite some time ago.
I don't think this was yours. This was on a cruise.
Oh, it was a cruise, obviously. Okay.
Yeah, we stopped there.
Great. I think there's a question, Andrew.
I was gonna. We've not been on a World Affairs Council trip before. Could you talk a little bit about how much free time we have? It sounds obviously there's a lot of programming. So I guess two questions about that. One is, are we going to go to places, or are we going to be meeting with people that we probably wouldn't be able to see or meet if we were just going on our own as tourists? And then what sort of free time will we have?
Let me start from the second part about free time, or maybe let me start with the first part. The short answer is yes. That is what we try to do. That's what the World Affairs Council tries to do. Depending on the conditions, depending on the size of the group, and depending on the local conditions, especially. We try hard sometimes. Most of the time it happens, but there are times that it doesn't happen, those special meetings. But what we try to do is just, World Affairs Council, of course, has various connections with educational institutions, with certain ministries, with the embassies over there. So we try to include a visit to one of the embassies, US embassies in one of the 3 countries, for example, and we try to include a visit to one of the universities and meet with an expert academician in international relations to, talk about, especially nowadays, this part of the world is, quite important, quite hot, and just, in the focus of the world. So hearing from them about, firsthand about today's political situation and international, from the view of international relations, would be important. We try to do that. We try to include, if possible, meet with one of the ministries in the country, in one of the countries. So we try to incorporate these meetings. How much of them we can achieve, it depends on, as I mentioned, the size of the group. Just if we have too few people, it is, it's not that appealing for the institutions over there, to welcome us. If it is too big, practically it may be a problem. But the best size, and which is actually the average size for a World Affairs Council group, 12 to 14 people, let's say, then that is the ideal size. That is the perfect audience for this kind of a meeting, for arranging these kinds of meetings. So World Affairs Council, in short, tries to do their best to arrange these meetings. One thing we have to keep in mind, of course, this COVID pandemic threw everything out of balance, so we don't know, just gradually things are coming back. US embassies in all of our destinations, they are still in COVID mode. So most of the time they don't accept visitors into the embassy buildings. So these things may be certain issues, But again, this tour will be in June of 2023, so there's still plenty of time, and COVID is gradually coming to an end. So we are quite positive that we may incorporate a number of meetings in this trip that are unique to World Affairs Council trips. Having said that, free time. Now, especially if we incorporate these kinds of meetings, it cuts away from the free time that you might otherwise have. So it is, a kind of balance. It's kind of a trade-off between whether to have some free time or to, incorporate some kind of a meeting. So the more meetings we have, the less free time you're going to have. But yes, we have a lot to see, even if we don't have any meetings. We try to give some free time in the cities. Unfortunately, this covers the capital cities. So this is a city, mostly city environment. So especially, our hotels are centrally located. Our meals are included too, but in between meals, in between, the time that we check into our hotels and dinner or after dinner, you will have some free time, maybe not to visit, additional locations, which I'm sure you will not want to after visiting all these places anyhow, but to walk around and to experience the city firsthand. We try to do as much as we can to give, free time to our travelers.
So just to hop on that question, so it sounds pretty structured. So is this you're up at 7, you have breakfast, you go here or there, go meet, have lunch. Yeah, so just talk.
That is right. This is structured. This is a group tour. So everything is kind of planned. Not, of course, not minute by minute, just depending on the conditions, depending on our local guide. We always have our local guides, local professional guides, wherever we go in every country. So they, just explain us about the history, about the, all the sites that we're going to visit. And the details, how much time we spend in one location, et cetera, it all depends on the local conditions. So it's not, like, at 9 o'clock we have to be there. But of course, this is, of course, a structured group trip. One thing I can remind, though, is before or after the trip, if you want to, go early or extend your trip, staying or coming to Vilnius 1 day, 2 days earlier, or staying in Tallinn a couple of days longer, or to add some other destination to your trip, we can arrange for that. You can come early, leave late, make your trip longer, add another location on your own or as a private tour. Those are quite possible. Now I see here, Lynn has a question in the chat section here. The fares listed in the brochure, economy premium, economy business class price, those are the airfares only. It is not the price of the tour. Price of the tour, if you go on the travel website, again, the webpage of this particular tour, you will see the brochure. The airfare is given in the brochure, which was valid for the date given in the brochure. So the airfare may change anytime, of course, as we get closer to the dates of the trip. Airfares, of course, we expect them to be higher. And on the same page, you also see the tour application document. The tour price is given in that document and also on that page. So tour cost is separate from the airfare.
Yes.
And how big a group could we expect?
How big of a group? As I mentioned, on average, 10, 12. If you have 14, that is a relatively big group, I would say. So we aim for 10, 12. But we operate the tour even if we have 4 or 5 people. We don't, simply cancel. So we operate the tour definitely, and we have quite competent local guides, as I mentioned. So just tour operates, and when we have, only 4 people. Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about the transportation? If I understood correctly, flying into Europe and flying out of Europe, but no flying internally on this trip. And and maybe this depends on how many participants we have, but what was the typical mode of transportation?
You are right. There are no domestic or internal flights. You just, the given suggested flights are on Lufthansa flying through or via Frankfurt, from Houston, Frankfurt, Vilnius, and coming back from Tallinn, Frankfurt, or Munich to Houston. But the whole trip is on bus, land transportation. So we will have one transportation depending on the size of the group. Generally, what we have is the size of the vehicle is more or less, the seats twice the size of the group. So, if we have 10 people, 12 people, we have a 25-seater, 30-seater bus. If we have 4 or 5 people, we have a 10-seater Mercedes Sprinter van. So they are comfortable, just with air conditioning, and we have water on the bus or on the van, and dependable, experienced drivers. So there's plenty of space, and it's quite comfortable.
Thank you.
And the driving distances over there are, they're not too long. Of course, just if we drive directly from destination to the other, it would be 2.5, 3 hours nonstop. But that's not what we do, of course, as you see. Just every hour there's some place to see, to visit. Even if we don't have anything, we stop for a break to rest our legs, to walk around, and so it is quite pleasant to drive in these countries too.
And I don't have the brochure in front of me, but it seemed like there were 3 or 4 hotels we're staying in. Is that right?
3, actually. Yes,
3 hotels.
1 in each country, because we are covering 3 capitals basically.
Okay.
So the 7 nights, that is 3 nights, 2 nights, 3 nights.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Mhm.
So three.
Or actually, just 1 second, please. Let me see here to be exact.
322.
That is, 2 nights in Vilnius, and 3 nights in Riga, and 2 nights in Tallinn.
Yeah.
232. So that's also another, convenience, in the sense that you won't have to pack up every morning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's not fun.
that's right. Sometimes you have to, but on some of our trips we have to cover distances, so that's what we do. Any other questions or?
I am always available to answer questions, and I can, Ilias is available as well. So if after the call we have, if you have any questions, make sure to email one of us. As Ilias mentioned, he's more than happy to help you plan if you want to go before or extend the tour and stay after. I've seen several of our members do that with several of our trips. So that's an opportunity if you're going to be on in that part of Europe to explore more. Make sure to contact Ilias about that. If anybody has any questions about the just the logistics, like filling out the application or anything like that, I'm always available by email or by phone. So definitely make sure to reach out to me. Ilias, is there a visa process in this one?
Not actually, but I see that there is a question, Andrew.
Yes, Andrew.
Oh, go ahead and answer the visa question first.
No, there are no
visa.
visa for U.S. citizens. No.
Gotcha.
No,
That makes it easy.
Is there an advantage?
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Is there advantage?
I would say, okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Ilias, you finish the thought.
Okay, I would say no visa requirements, but requirements for vaccination. You need to have at least 3, So
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Is there an advantage to us booking the flights through you instead of just booking our own flights? Especially if we
You
would have alternative dates that we would come and go?
you could do either way. That is fine. Even with alternative dates, I can just give you whatever fares we have, and if you want to do it on your own, you are welcome to do so. If you want to do it through us, you're welcome to do that too. So either way, whichever is more favorable for you. Yes, Ursula.
By when do you need to know about a commitment for the trip?
We are
Mhm.
accepting applications for that now. The trip is in
In June of next year?
June. So
So, like 9 months out, right?
we're like 9 months out, and we
Yeah.
try to have everything confirmed by about 3 months out.
Okay.
But the thing is, the earlier the better, because
Yes.
the earlier we know, how many people will be on the trip, we can arrange those meetings better
That's
for
right.
logistical
Yeah.
reasons. Just otherwise things tend to happen in the last minute, kind of, if we finalize 2 months or 3 months, prior to the departure date, things become a little bit more congested.
And the earlier that you get as you know, airfares go up the closer you get to the date. So the earlier you
Mhm.
book, the lower the price of the airfare, because airfare is not included in our trips.
I guess I should ask the safety question. I suppose the Russians are too occupied in another part of their country to worry about it, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway.
Well, we can't know, right? I mean, just unfortunately, there's nothing we can say about that. We will just assume hope for the best, and to do our best for that. And I would say, of course, please have travel insurance, but there is no travel insurance that would cover any war, in case of a war. So I don't know how to answer that. There's no, but by that time, we will see. I mean, if something happens in, May 30th of 2023, just a couple of days, 1 week before the tour, of course, we'll do our best, and the airlines will do their best, to cancel and refund and everything. Obviously, it's force majeure. But, if something happens much earlier than that, it'll be easier to cancel and refund your payments and everything. So, I mean, as far as, yeah.
Fortunately, there's not a war. Apparently, there's just a special military operation going on.
There is that, yes, just that would kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
make
point.
Yes.
make things a little bit palatable.
And if it's a trip you're
Quotation marks.
considering, it's definitely worthwhile to keep on top of the news of that. And, Ilias will be aware of anything that comes through the official governments of those particular countries.
Okay. Well, this was very helpful. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well,
Thank you.
thanks for joining.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Right. If
Thank
anybody
you.
has any questions,
Have
let
a
us
good
know.
night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.